Coming up today on Locked On Texas Tech is their array of light for the Big 12 Conference when it comes to a future television contract. Also, it's Locked On Texas Tech against the spread. But first, we get off to a fast start by discussing getting off to fast starts. Next on Locked On Texas Tech.
You are Locked On Texas Tech, your daily podcast on the Texas Tech Red Raiders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We're going to start this thing off right. Raider! Everything runs through Lubbock.
With the only Chris Level, I'm Casey Cowan, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And we'd like to thank our friends at Underdog for bringing you today's episode. Sign up on UnderdogFantasy.com with the promo code Locked On and get your first deposit doubled up to $100. Today, to kick off the program, why not just talk about the kickoff, the opening salvo, Chris, the first quarter? Because we actually heard from a Cowboy fan I noticed before the show in the YouTube comments that was saying, strangely to me as a Tech fan to hear this, we got to get all over the Red Raiders in the first quarter. If we don't, it could be a bloodbath. I think he actually said that seemed a bit dramatic, but the first quarter was awful pivotal for Texas Tech a week ago because you really just never dug yourself out of that hole. They've talked about working on a quick start a little bit this week. And man, I'm curious to see right out of the gates if there's something different than what you had last week. Because if there's not, it could be a very long day.
Yeah, I'm with you. And it's Joey's talked about that. I mean, hey, Captain Obvious here. Everybody wants to start fast and all that, but I mean, when you look up 20-0 and 13-0, it's just because at this point you're just chasing, and then you start the fourth down stuff much earlier in the game than you would maybe need to, but just playing better early, and it's not. It's more of I think a mindset. I don't think it's a suggestion that we're going to be super aggressive early and we're going to force it but it's just really about, like last week, I mean, you just 2 plays and just huge runs and it's 7-0. And it's like, well, we didn't even, I'm still drinking coffee. I mean, like we hadn't even got going. I mean, and you just can't. And Oklahoma State's explosive enough that you're right. It can get sideways in a hurry. And the funny thing is you talk to these Oklahoma State folks, and this series has really been close games. I think there's a few that are the exception in the last, say, decade. But for the most part, this has been a fairly competitive, game when it's been played. Oklahoma State's won most of those, but it's been a game that Texas Tech competes in, and you don't get blown out up there a lot. It's happened, but so I'm just kind of – this is a weird one. If you're Oklahoma State, this is probably a scary game for you. They've got eyes on winning the Big 12, but this is kind of a scary one because your strength or potential strength of throwing the ball and throwing it as many times as you do plays into what really on paper is Oklahoma State's weakness, or certainly points to where their inexperience is. So I think they're kind of curious what that's going to look like. And the flip side is they'll also tell you they're kind of worried about Tim DeRuyter's defense, sending a lot of pressure and blitzing a lot. And, we've talked about that, what Coach Gundy was able to see as he watched Texas Tech's games and how well Texas Tech's defensive front has played kind of plays into their other, weakness, and how Spencer Sanders doesn't handle pressure well, and that's a kind of an offensive line that's maybe not as good as it has been in years past. So I don't know, but you're right. I don't see a recipe for you winning if you don't play well early.
Yeah, mindset, I think, is a great way to describe what impacts that kind of thing. There were just guys you may remember in your own huddle or on your own team or in your own locker room that just had that kind of bent towards being ready to inflict pain at any minute of the day. And when the ball was in the air, they were ready to go. And thankfully, a lot of them wearing the same uniform I was. And I'm just looking for the guys on the other side that weren't as ready to go and were risking their livelihoods by not being ready to go, because there was a man ready to punish you on the other side, 11 a.m. or otherwise, So I hope that this has been a bit of a lesson, because certainly they went through I mean, every bit of an experience that would let them feel what it's like to actually play some football at moments that is winning football, but never really be in a great position, in large part because of the start you got off to or didn't get off to. So we'll see if there's some type of change there immediately as we hit the field at 2:30 in Stillwater this weekend.
Well, and Casey, real quick, because what you worry about is if the psychology of this thing. Far too much in recent history, there's this here we go again mentality. And you don't want this group that's been playing really hard to be down early by double digits and kind of start to look around and go, well, we've been here before. It hadn't worked. And they can say what's next, and they can say, we're going to keep playing hard and all that. But, at some point you just go, geez, man, we're just like snake bit. You just don't know. I'm not suggesting they would. I'm just saying you worry about that because that's
natural.
Exactly. It's very natural. And it's like, man, emptied our bucket. We played hard and we weren't good enough to beat these teams on the road. And Oklahoma State may be the best one of the three. I don't know, but you could absolutely make that argument. And so I just think you get down double digits early, and I think that could spell doom.
Well, you said the word weird already, and one of the things that's been kind of weird, maybe you didn't anticipate it as a Tech fan. I don't know what it speaks to. I'm curious what you're thinking, but how about the line movement we've seen this week? If you've been checking it out there at Bet Online, where the game starts, you've seen double digits, 13.5, 11, 10.5, 9.5, I think is most recently what I've continued to see, Chris. So there's been some movement, and when you're going to somebody's home field that's ranked in the top 10, it's not quite the, I guess, direction of the movement I expected to see. Hadn't that been a little odd, or has that surprised you at all?
Oh, no, I completely agree with you. I completely agree with you. Here's my question for you. Let's skip ahead to Sunday, Monday-ish. What if you lose by a field goal or touchdown? You feel better about this team or worse about this team? Talking about Texas Tech.
I would probably just continue to feel about as I have, which is encouraged.
Okay.
Knowing they're not a top 10 team and maybe not quite the team I should expect to go on the road and beat one. But if you're continuing to compete and in winning time, final half of the fourth quarter or just the fourth quarter in general, you got a shot. Look, I'm just trying to get back to a bowl game. That's 6-6 football, and I'm pretty pleased with those situations. I don't know if I should say pleased, but I'll feel like you're continuing to maintain the pace you have this season, which has been an above expectation one for me personally. Obviously, you go win the game because I don't expect Texas Tech to. You go win the game, then yeah, you're feeling pretty good about your potential coming back to a bye week and a home game on the other side. So I don't know how many people will agree with that take, but that's generally where I have been. The sky has not fallen in on my Red Raider world, 3-2 after these 5.
Yeah, and again, I don't remember. I'm sure it's happened before. It can have happened many times, but I don't remember a stretch to where you're playing 5 ranked teams in a row. This has been, it's just, bad luck or just the way it's worked, and you've already got 2 wins in that stretch. You're 500 in that stretch to this point.
Yeah, but
I think I don't know. I'll be curious to see kind of what the pulse is if you come up just a bit short again. And
if you do something stupid to come up short,
that's probably one thing.
Then that's a different conversation, right? Yeah. But if it's just slugging it out and they land the last blow, and
they're just maybe better than you are, which could easily be possible. Yeah,
I think they're a more talented football team, a deeper football team, and probably on most days a better football team. But that doesn't matter because we're going to see who's the better one coming up on Saturday. And I don't think that Texas Tech has anything to hang their heads about as far as how they've gone about competing so far this season. And again, not everybody may agree with the fact that I feel like you're beyond my expectations, 3-2 after 4 straight against top 25 opponents. But since I feel that way, I can't hang my head if you lose another tight one against a top 10 opponent, knowing that you've still got plenty of opportunity coming up the second half of this season. But a lot of that will depend on how that's going down. But can't wait to see the response. And I can't, I don't bemoan the schedule. I don't say, hey, it's bad luck. I'm glad to have it. And it should make you a better football team. Certainly easy to say it's entertaining from a fan standpoint to have these kinds of games, but it should make you a better football team. If they're a well-coached team, they'll benefit from these things, win or lose, and you'll be better off when you finish than when you started. But I got to tell you, Chris, I don't think we've seen that type of ascension through a year. Even if it's like, hey, we were a 3-win and we just wound up as a 6-win team. I don't think we've seen that kind of thing in like a decade plus, at least not consistently. You know what I'm saying? I mean,
yeah, no, I don't disagree with you.
It's just like constant this, or it's just river bottom.
That's why that West Virginia game is going to be really for both programs. It's going to be huge. It just is. They're unhappy with Neil Brown. That's a game he would, if he doesn't get that done that day, he would drop to 0-4 versus Texas Tech. And for the Red Raiders, man, I mean, I hate to be looking ahead. I'm just saying, no matter what you do, that's going to be a huge game for you to try to get to that, bowl eligibility, and not winning that one. It seemingly would be difficult. And, depending on how this weekend goes, it could drop you to 3-4. So again, I'm not skipping ahead past this weekend. I'm just saying,
whoa.
Yeah. So it just trying to say, this is what the landscape looks like in the near future. But you've got some meaningful football coming up here for sure.
Yeah, man, go seize the opportunity. This is what you're here for, is to be a good team. And being a good team means you're going to beat some other good teams or need to do that. So here's one up ahead, and one that oddly is shaped up maybe to be viewed by the public as a little closer than some would have figured starting out the week. So we'll see if that actually comes to fruition this weekend or not. And coming up dead ahead, want to touch on something that'll impact all of us again this weekend: television broadcast. Did you catch the stray shot out of nowhere at the Pac-12 that was favorable for those in Big 12 country? If not, we'll catch you up on what was there in the weeds to find if you were looking in the right spots this week. We'll do it next. But first, it's Underdog Fantasy there for you this weekend, spicing up your college football Saturday. Easiest place to do that because they put the work in to make sure the process to get started is as easy as can be. Their focus is making the game day experience top notch, as in being easy to play while watching the Red Raiders take on the Cowboys this Saturday. And all it takes is one single game possibly to get into that cold, hard cash. A fun user experience, ease of movement, etc. is focus number one for Underdog. So you're at the top of the priority list with Underdog Fantasy. Check them out right now and sign up with the promo code Locked On, and Underdog is going to double your first deposit up to $100. So deposit a hundo, get a hundo right back. Underdog family treatment, baby. Go to UnderdogFantasy.com or find the Underdog Fantasy app in the App Store or the Google Play Store. And then again, at UnderdogFantasy.com, use the promo code Locked On. That's promo code Locked On, and kick up your college football Saturday a notch at UnderdogFantasy.com. Glad to have you along for the ride on Locked On Texas Tech, your team every day on the Locked On Podcast Network. Subscribe on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts. We're back to the Red Raiders and Cowboys coming up, as well as Locked On Texas Tech against the spread. We will see if I can maintain my blazing 500 pace and if Chris Level can bounce back from a rough outing last time around, as we'll hit games in the Big 12 Conference and beyond, and some interesting ones once again to tee up here and get to, as we'll get some ideas from you as well in the YouTube comments. I like to hear from you out there because, I'm a little shaky on some of these. I got to be honest. Even though it was that ultra successful 500 weekend last time around, I probably still have an area to improve somewhere. I don't know. Maybe I'm actually at peak capacity right now. Chris, I wanted to first, though, turn the audience's attention to Bob Thompson, which is not just a fictitious name that I made up, or is it? Fact check me if you want to. Bob Thompson is the retired Fox Sports Network, head dude in charge. And I don't know if you have heard of this guy before, but I've never heard of this guy before. This week, when he got a lot of attention in Big 12 and Pac-12 country, he tweeted out just a few days ago I think the Big 12 gets 10 to 15% more than the Pac-12 on a per school basis. Just a lot more rabid fans in total in the Southwest. Ratings are good, and BYU brings a huge following. And he goes on to say Kansas and K-State are ranked. Texas and Oklahoma aren't. Who would have thought? But he touches on a number there, 10 to 15% more, and he attributes something that I've tried to emphasize over and over, just boiling down to the fact that it seems from Big 12 fan to Big 12 fan versus the counterpart on the West Coast, just simply more interest. They care more about what's going on.
Well, that is not wrong. I mean, at all. If I'm being honest, I would have thought it would have been a bit more percentage wise, actually. And I don't know what he's saying. Is that off into the future or immediately, or is there any adjustments to these leagues? I.e., what's the Big Ten's? We have all the other realignment kind of stuff. Now, if the leagues stay as is, and Oregon and Washington are happy Pac-12 members and all those things, I would have actually thought it would have been slightly more than just 10 or 15% more. But I think his point remains the same. The Big 12 is operating from a position of strength. They are in much better shape than the Pac-12 is, even if you include Washington and Oregon. And I think you have more population, and I think what his point, and that's almost a Captain Obvious, you have more interest. I think there's just no doubt. I mean, look at your poll, like the top 25 poll right now. I mean, the Big 12 teams and future Big 12 teams are littered through that thing. I mean, so I think it's going to be fascinating to see kind of what we get. I mean, and all this comes out, okay? And I see the Big 12 announcing they're going to go do a Big 12 media blitz in the city of New York. Featuring Brett Yormark and Bob Huggins and Scott Drew and some other things. I saw that release in the last day or so from the league. And so
what
Brett
does that
Yormark,
do?
well, he's just hustling. I think it's just, and maybe it's the optics of it. It's you're shaking the bushes a bit. You're just trying
like
to
ABC, NBC, CBS, Fox. Or are they talking
well
like
that I don't know.
I'm just wondering, like, who are you actually?
Yeah,
whose mind are you trying to influence?
Yeah, going to go visit with, and maybe he's going to get these people in front of on ESPN, some of those ESPN shows and things like that.
People.
I really don't know. I think though that if it's not something that the Pac-12 is doing, I mean that's
well, Chris. Here's what I would say is the Big 12 needs to blitz college football media whoever that is, maybe Bristol, Connecticut, because it's the media that doesn't find what you called Captain Obvious territory obvious for some reason.
Yeah.
It's Pac-12 brand, and that's probably why they aren't doing it, because they've thought all along, well, we don't need to do it, and maybe still are haughty enough to think that they don't need to do it, which fine for them. But that's why I'm wondering, like, well, who's in New York? Nobody in New York cares about college football, so why are you going to New York?
Right. Yeah, no, I get it. And it's just the basketball-centric media blitz, too. Anyway, I just thought it was interesting. Not that there's any correlation amongst the reports from the Fox exec and what the Big 12 is doing. I just thought it was that's clearly a Brett Yormark type thing, though, and I thought it was interesting because, I mean, where did he make his hay? Was it there in Brooklyn with the Nets and all those things? So
Yonkers.
Yeah, exactly. And he knows people. And I guarantee you, Mr. Thompson, he still maybe retired, may not be in the position that he was in. He knows those people at Fox. He still knows the people that are there.
Got my attention.
And has probably talked to, absolutely. He's probably talked to some of them. Or and maybe both, and that would be my guess, or he's still buddies with people at kind of the consulting type firms that they all kind of, work through and talk about and all the different scenarios. So I guarantee you that information is accurate. And again, I guess from a casual observer of this, I would have thought maybe it would have been a bit higher, but and it's not about trying to beat the Pac-12, but it also, here's where this is very important. It also basically tells Arizona, Utah, Arizona State, Colorado, whoever you may be interested in, if you really want to maximize your revenue, guess what? And so that may be a clear shot into the air just to let you know, hey, take it from an expert here. there's more money to be made with the Big 12 conference. Who knows?
Yeah, I mean, the retired president of a network is going to get my attention regardless when he feels compelled to speak up on something, retired or otherwise, when he feels compelled to speak up on something like that. And yeah, it's not the Big 12 versus the Pac-12 in actuality, because the real number for Big 12 member institutions is in a world where the Pac-12 no longer exists, because that's when you've had this transition and the four corners, or whatever it looks like, 2 of the 4, whatever, are in the Big 12 conference. Washington and Oregon are already moving on. Cal, Stanford, I guess, is going to be a part of that as well. I mean, this should be Captain Obvious territory. Somehow the national media misses this. So wherever you find those media members, that's where you need to be blitzing Mr. Yormark. I mean, the Marcy Projects with Jay-Z and Beanie Siegel in the gang, probably a good idea too. But also, I don't know, the South, wherever Fox is, Atlanta, Los Angeles. I mean, because truly, these are the folks who Sports Illustrated, these are the folks who will shortchange the Big 12 conference. But the West Coast brands, which are fleeing, it's the reverse grapes of wrath. They're trying to get the Big 10 country, are the ones that always get the benefit of the doubt, just like some of those on the East Coast or in the South as well. So, or Big 10 country. So I don't think it's really all that different. But either way, the real number for the Big 12 is after this shuffle has happened. We're not surprised to see that there is some percentage better or favorable to the Big 12. I think maybe where, if you think it's small, it's because it's in that reality right now where Oregon and Washington still are in the Pac-12, Chris, and the Big 12 doesn't have an Oregon or a Washington. They just don't. So when you do compare those, it's like, well, yeah, all right, 10 or 15% more. Well, fine enough. But the real number eventually is something that exists without the Pac-12 still being around as we know it. So I'm interested to fast forward toward that, but I did think it was very interesting to hear from somebody like a retired president of a network.
No doubt.
Hey, what you may be hearing is true. The Big 12 has an advantage, and for whatever reason, whether you like it or don't, this is going to be the ship that more likely remains afloat for the near future. So listen up again. We'll say it for the 1,000th time. 4 corners, bail while you can. Quit before they fire you is essentially the status there for those guys. We will get back to the immediate future, not forecasting far off television movement, but forecasting what's going down this weekend in the Big 12 and beyond. It's Locked On Texas Tech against the spread next on Locked On Texas Tech. But first, you're feeling it in the air. In the morning, that chill is there. Fall is here, and harvest season is about to be in full swing. If you're one of those farmers or ranchers all across the high plains, you got a million things running through your mind, and that's when you need those who have your back to be in tip-top shape at their best, covering all the bases, and that's what they're doing at Flatlands Grain. 30 quick and convenient minutes north of the LBK in Hale Center, Texas, America. They are standing by to take care of those farm and ranch families all across the high plains. And of course, if you're talking about a big job, talking about a small job, whether it's one truckload or thousands of bushels, you're talking about something that Flatlands Grain can handle. Check them out online at flatlandsgrain.com. And of course, a variety of services, whether it's something like market experience, crop analysis, just keeping the animals fed. They're going to be able to take care of that for you this fall into the winter, and then cooking it up when the spring rolls around once again here in West Texas. Give Jonathan and company a call at 806-839-2522. Or again, visit our friends at Flatlands Grain there in Hale Center, or online at flatlandsgrain.com. Always great to be with you on Locked On Texas Tech on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for subscribing on YouTube or anywhere you get podcasts. We broke the tie last week as Locked On Texas Tech goes against the spread. Now that a commanding 2-game lead has been opened up in my favor, will Chris just pack it in, or will he respond? Let's find out. As we get to the Big 12 Conference first, Chris, and no surprise here, some tight ones they're expecting. Let's begin with the Horned Frogs and the Jayhawks. And again, Little disrespect for KU as the Frogs -7 taking it up north. How you seeing it play out?
The big game day game, okay?
Right.
And yet this game is airing on FS1.
I'm not sure I knew that.
Yeah, weird. Kansas is averaging 40 a game, but they only, I think, 28 yards in the second half versus Iowa State last week. They come out and score 14 quick points, and then that was it. That was all the offense we saw from the Jayhawks. I think TCU's way too fast. I think that Kansas should have, had a loss last week, and so I think Max Duggan's playing too well. I'll take TCU minus the points.
Thank goodness we're splitting right off of the bat because I'm going back with the Jayhawks, baby. Should have lost. What are you talking? The final score is what the final score is, Chris, and I'm rolling with more disrespect on the home field. The Frogs are fat and happy. They haven't been thinking about anything but beating Oklahoma all week long. So I'm taking KU +7. Chris will roll -7 the other way with the Frogs. Red River shootout there next to the Tilt-A-Whirl at the Carnival in Dallas, Texas, and Oklahoma. Horns are a touchdown favorite here. Who you like?
I'm taking Texas. I think this game is huge. They have all the pressure, mind you. Quinn Ewers is going to start this game.
Texas?
Yeah, Texas has all the pressure on them. Absolutely. Okay. Because they need to win this game. They should win this game. They've lost 4 in a row to Oklahoma. Oklahoma's a mess. They're going to start a backup quarterback. Okay, and I think the Texas starting quarterback, Quinn Ewers, is going to start this game and play. And I just think when you look at Oklahoma, oddly enough, I think this is a talent issue. You know how many all Big 12 players Oklahoma had before the season started?
I do not.
Zero. I mean,
Whoa.
So I think that especially with a backup quarterback, Dylan Gabriel was maybe one of the best things that Oklahoma had going for them. He was playing extremely well. And he gets knocked out of the game last week. He played really good against Kansas State, but they just can't stop anybody. And I think Texas is actually pretty good on offense, especially with Sark calling the plays. As long as Xavier Worthy and Bijan Robinson are healthy, I think this is just way too much offense for Oklahoma to be able to deal with. I'll take the burnt orange.
We got to be in agreement on this one, and it is no compliment to Texas, so I'm not going to talk about anything
Right.
they do that's any good, but good grief, seeing what just on the ground Texas Christian was able to do to Oklahoma defensively was really scary. So, yeah, I'll probably roll with the Mustard Man and the Longhorns in that equation. We'll both go with Texas at -7 there. Farmageddon, corn, wheat. Who's got the better soil? Do you like a sandy loam? Iowa State, K-State, Purple Wildcats -2 here. What do you see?
I've taken 2 favorites so far, but I'm going underdog here. I'm taking Iowa State at home. It's a very difficult place to play. I think the one thing, Iowa State doesn't have a field goal kicker. I'm going to keep pointing that out. And I worry about Hunter Deckers and how much offense they can generate. But the one thing they have going for them is John Heacock's defense. They're really good. I mean, they are about what we have thought. His scheme is really good. And I think this is a game where Adrian Martinez will have to throw the ball to ultimately win it. Because it's a guy that's got over 300 yards rushing and 7 touchdowns in the last 2 games alone on the ground. Okay, but I'll take Iowa State. To me, this is a game that's going to show you how much parity there is in the Big 12 conference. But the fact I'm getting a couple of points at home at night, I'll take Matt Campbell Cyclones.
Man, I like what you're saying there, but I'm going the other way on this one as well. I think I see more explosive options. Potentially for K-State offensively, maybe bottled up for a large part of that game, but wonder if there might be a big play to dial up at some point from the deuce getting loose or the aforementioned Adrian Martinez. So I'm going to roll with the Wildcats -2. Chris will take Cyclones +2. Outside of the Big 12 Conference, Arkansas, Mississippi State, 9.5 home favorite for Mike Leach. And there's some Mike Leach trauma in my history as far as meeting a consistent standard week to week when it comes to Mike Leach football teams, Chris. And I think I'm woo pig sueying like you have been a couple of times. Give me Arkansas +9.5 against the Bulldogs. Who do you like?
I'm with you. I may just be suckered into Arkansas. This is 3 weeks in a row that come to earn me the 2 previous ones. I like their running game. Now, Arkansas, keep in mind, they are going to be playing with a backup quarterback as well in this game. KJ Jefferson left that game last week with a concussion or head injury of sorts, but I just think their running game is too much. And I think Arkansas is pretty good. They're not going to keep losing games, and you just wonder what A&M's mindset is. Mississippi State's mindset is after they go kind of upset A&M and really embarrass them.
Yeah, have a lot of fun that day.
Yeah, but I like the fact I'm nearly getting 10 points here, so I'm going to take the points in the Hogs.
And like halfway in the Big 12, halfway outside of the Big 12, BYU at Notre Dame taking on the Irish. Notre Dame a 3.5-point favorite, but BYU the ranked team in this opponent.
The Catholics and the Mormons in Vegas. What could go wrong, right? This game's in Vegas at the home of the Raiders. I think it's part of the Shamrock series where Notre Dame kind of plays these neutral site games around the country and tries to get the Irish fans in front of their team. But I'm going Big 12 here. I'm pseudo Big 12, whatever. I'm taking BYU. And Notre Dame started out 0-2. They've won 2 in a row, but I think Kalani Sitake's a really good coach. I'll take the Fighting Mormons there in Vegas.
Yeah, and that sounds delicious. I'll have 2 Kalani Zitakis after the show, and give me BYU plus 3.5 as well. All right, boys, that's how she lays. Let's see how the dust settles, and we'll be back to recap it on the other side next week. 6-5, 4-7, the sparkling marks we've posted so far.
Yeah, not good
this season, but we're just getting revved up, baby. We're just getting revved up. Get revved up further for the Big 12 slate this weekend by checking out Locked On Big 12 right here on the Locked On Podcast Network with Josh Neighbors. Enjoyed it once again this week, Chris. We got a great one coming up on the road this weekend, and can't wait to see what happens, man. Thanks for the time as always.
Absolutely, man. Keep hope alive, people.
Yes, sir. And check out anything you might have missed getting ready for the ball game this week on YouTube or anywhere you get your podcasts right here on Locked On Texas Tech.